Gen V Season 2 has wrapped up, and we now have 7 seasons in the Boys franchise. We have an animated series, a collegiate spinoff, and 4 core seasons, with the final one coming soon. Initially, I do think everyone was pretty hesitant about a spinoff in this world, but not only has Gen V Season 2 proven that this is a necessary series, but to me, and I feel like a lot of people, it's gotten us beyond excited for other spinoffs like The Boys Mexico and the Vought Rising prequel. Let me know your ranking of all 7 seasons in the comments down below, but in 7th place for me is The Boys Diabolical. Something has to be in last place. This isn't a bad series by any means, but it's definitely the worst out of the 7 that we have in this franchise. It's a great show for what it is, but it doesn't really add anything to the universe, and there's not much consistent character work going on, as this is not necessarily an anthology series, but it's not following one main story. The gore is great, the action is so awesome, but I felt like this was the most cash grab of the franchise so far. In 6th place for me is The Boys Season 1. There is a big gap between 6 and 7, and I think overall this is a really great season of television. We've just gotten what's built on Season 1 over and over and better and better. Every aspect of Season 1 is 10 times better in Seasons 3, 4, and in Gen V Season 2 in my opinion. The best feature of Season 1 is just the fact that it focuses so heavily on Starlight. She is the perfect, I guess, middle ground character where we have an element or a character that's in The Boys and then also in the Vought system. In 5th place for me is The Boys Season 2. I think this is where the series really proved that it can be a grander, slightly bigger superhero show, because Season 1 to me, not on like a camera work or physical level, but more so on like a grand sets level, didn't really feel like a superhero show. Whether it was the action or just the blood and set pieces, it felt like it was picking and choosing where it could be good and where it had to kind of like cut corners. And I get it. It was the pilot season. But Season 2 just has so many absolutely gnarly sequences that it got me interested in a way that just was like, how far can they really go and will they go there? And of course, they always do. Season 2 of The Boys, though, to me is a little bit rough around the edges on a story level because there's so much going on. I think the stuff with Becca, Butcher, and Homelander is easily the most interesting, but obviously Stormfront is also thrown in there, and that really throws a wrench in all of the like regular dynamics between Homelander and Butcher, in my opinion. I love that storyline, but I think it's just so much going on. I do wish Season 2 was a little more focused, but at the same time, it really does start off phenomenal character arcs with all of the members of The Boys. In 4th place for me is Gen V Season 1. Bluntly put, this is exactly how you do a spinoff in a world that advertises it as, this is The Boys, everything you like about this show, but in a college setting. This series came out my freshman year of college, and it was super cool to be able to see people with superpowers my age going to school. That's so cool. That's such an interesting idea. I think Season 1 flourishes so much in sticking to that concept. I think by the end, it does end up leveling up just a little bit because of the mystery aspects behind Vought and Godolkin and all of those things kind of snowballing on top of each other. But more so, it works because Marie is such an interesting character. Season 1 flourishes so much on building out a really great cast of characters. Now, Season 2 flourishes in focusing much more on Marie, which I'll get to in a second here, but I do think building out all of these characters right out of the gate in the first season, I think sometimes you might not be as interested in specific characters. Like, I think Sam isn't the most interesting. I think the stuff with the hospital isn't the most interesting in terms of just a plot or a storyline. Like, there's other things we could be doing, but it ends up working out by the end. You end up caring about everyone by the end. So I think the pacing in the first half feels a little slow, but that was the same thing in Season 1. This just has the benefit of building off of Seasons 1 and 2 of The Boys. In 3rd place for me is Gen V Season 2. Now, I want to get my biggest flaw of the season out of the way before I start glazing the fuck out of it. This isn't really like superpowers in college anymore. This is a bigger mystery. This is a bigger story. Marie is set up as basically the most powerful being in this universe. I'm not going to get too deep into spoilers here, but obviously I have a full review out if you want to check that out. At least the first half of Season 1 of Gen V is so focused on superpowers in college, and that's what the draw of Gen V is. I'm already so invested, and I think most people that are watching Season 2 of Gen V are already so invested in the universe of The Boys that it doesn't matter that we're not doing it anymore. But that is the appeal. That's the synopsis of Gen V taking place at Godolkin University. That idea of superheroes in college is pretty much thrown out of the window here. But that being said, I think this series takes a turn for the better. This season focuses a lot less on the spectacle, though. I think season 1 of Gen V needed to be grotesque in a way that feels like it's just trying to wow the audience. The Boys season 3 and kind of season 4, in my opinion, also fall victim to that. But what I noticed in Gen V season 2 is that we're not necessarily just doing it for spectacle's sake. There are much more emotional and just dialogue moments. I think Marie is arguably the strongest, I mean, yes, physically as defined in the series, but writing-wise, one of the strongest characters in the entire franchise. The nuances of Marie are just so much deeper than Butcher or Homelander because she was kind of put into this pre-existing world of superheroes that we already know. There is an emotional and thematic idea within Marie that just can never exist for a character like Butcher because he's inherently so evil, and Homelander because, again, he's inherently so evil. In second place for me is The Boys season 4. I think this is the most divisive season of The Boys, and rightfully so. It functions as more of a setup season than anything else because we knew going in that season 5 would be the last of this specific story, I guess. I think the political aspects of this franchise will and have peaked in season 4 just because season 5 I think will be based in so much more of the dynamics and like real fighting between characters. That's not to say there wasn't spectacle or action in season 4, but it felt like it was more of building out this world, like a final push to do so. The dynamics between Newman and Homelander and Butcher and kind of all of like the Vought, the Seven kind of slowly turning. There is just so much interesting character dynamic work that's going on in this season, but I do think it's weaker than the number 1 spot just because every single episode individually isn't nearly as strong as I would have liked. It's still the second best season of the show because it is just doing exactly what seasons 1 and 2 are doing on a much higher level. The final episode that includes an assassination attempt on the president was insane to watch in real time, obviously with real events that were going on about a year ago. And all of the dynamics between Stan Edgar, Victoria Newman, and then the way that all these politics kind of play out as our real world is playing out. It was weird because it felt like they were writing the show in the summer that it came out, but it had to have been written like 2 years before that, filmed a year before that. I guess what I'm trying to say is the series finally feels so real in a really scary, like real life political governmental way, all while still having that spectacle that was present in the first 2 seasons. Homelander has always been an allegory to political leaders in our world, but I think the fact that they're able to balance both ends of it on an entertainment and real life political scale, that's why it works perfectly. I think this is also the best that Anthony Starr has been as Homelander. I think this is one of the best performances that Butcher has had, and I think this is the most interesting Huey and Starlight's dynamic has been throughout the entire franchise because, again, it's just constantly building. But in first place for me is The Boys season 3. Like I said in the beginning of this video, why season 1 works so well is because we have Starlight on the Boys side of things and the Seven side of things, and we have that exact same situation going on here on a much higher level with more just shit going on in the world with Soldier Boy. Soldier Boy has a very deep connection, of course, with Homelander, but he's also in a really interesting relationship with all of the boys. One of the many reasons I'm so excited for season 5 of The Boys is because Jensen Ackles came into this franchise in season 3 and kind of just took me by storm. I absolutely love his performance, this character. He's such an asshole. He's so entertaining. He really just threw a big wrench in the dynamics of this world. This is also, in my opinion, the best balance of spectacle, action, and then also character writing, because it felt like with Herogasm and then other just insane things, and also just the height that The Boys was at in season 3, they were really aiming for just doing the craziest shit possible. And I think to an extent people might have gotten annoyed by that, but I enjoyed that in the moment, and I was really happy that by the end of the season we were able to get a lot of emotional closure with characters like Ryan, Butcher, Becca, and Homelander. It's kind of where their overall stories wrapped up, because in season 4 obviously the entire series takes more of a political turn, or more of a blatant political turn, I should say. But I really like that. Like, it's fun, it's entertaining, but it's also trying to say something. It's safe to say I do think The Boys season 3 is pretty much perfect. I have like no flaws with it. I would go as far as to say it's one of my favorite seasons of comic book TV and just like TV in general. But that wraps up my ranking of all 7 seasons in The Boys franchise thus far. Let me know your your ranking for all 7 seasons in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.